Okay, God bless you, everybody. It's me again. It is 5:41 a.m. on June the 6th, 2018. And I want to I just want to talk about something real quick. For the last week or so, I've just been so impressed upon by the the uh, the volcano in on the Big Island, Hawaii. And the other day, I forget what I was doing, but I heard this in my spirit, Lower Puna. And Puna is, I guess it's a city or an area that is on that big island, the southeast corner of that big island, where the eruption is taking place. The eruption is not at the summit or the mountain that is called Kilauea, Mount Kilauea, which is the actual volcano. But the pressure has built up along the ground in just random places miles away from this volcano, Kilauea, and just cracks just opened up in the ground. And through the cracks, lava started being forced up, steam, and then lava. And now I guess they kind of stopped counting because they all just kind of got buried under lava, but there were 24 of those such cracks that have popped up since May 3rd. First 1, 2, 3, then for a long time there was like 8 or 9, and then they got all the way up to 24. The 8th one that popped up has now turned into, it just looks like a volcano of its own. Anybody who would see that would just think it was a volcano. It just isn't on the top of a mountain. It has a cone shape and it's spewing lava 250 feet in the air. 250 feet is nothing to sneeze at. That is 8 stories high, a building 8 stories high, up into the air, lava. So I think Puna might be a city, and then that area, Lower Puna, is where the lava is flowing down and going into the sea there. So this land there is populated, not as heavily populated as other places in Hawaii, but there are houses there. There are people who live there. And part of the reason why is that Hawaii is a very expensive place to live because of the fourth beast, which we all live under, the money system. Rome, New Rome, the Roman Catholic Church, imperialism, conquering all the nations. So they go there with their money and they displace the locals and make places where people used to live with their way of life in their villages impossible for those people to afford, and take all the best places through money. So now that place, which has a great number of non-native Hawaiians there as well, so in other words, a lot of Europeans live there. So that land there is very cheap because since 1924 and before that, there's an active volcano there, Kilauea, and it has erupted. It erupted in 1924. It erupted in 1955. It erupted in 1960. It erupted in, I think, 2011 or something like that. And not only that, it has been continuously erupting since 1983, which interestingly enough was 7 years. Before that, it would erupt. I hope I was saying erupt. It would erupt ever so often, like I said, in 1924, then in 1955, and then in 1960. But since 1983, it has been in a continuous eruption, which was never seen before. It has continuously been spewing here and there lava, smoke, ash, all the things that volcanoes do constantly. It's been in constant eruption since 1983, which, they know that's weird. They know that's unusual. But it's kind of like, well, let's kind of just see what happens. So people live in those areas because it's cheap. It's, it's the cheapest land you can buy, because any day they've interviewed people and they say, well, I always knew this was our family home, and I always knew that, it was built on an old lava flow. And we always knew that we lived near this volcano that could come and recover this land with lava and just, destroy it, make it worthless. So that land was really cheap at that time, especially when one of the latest flows went through there. The land was really cheap because that eruptions were fresh in people's minds, and no one wants to live there, so there wasn't that much competition for that land, so the price was low. And many of the people there live off-grid, so it's just cheap to live there. It's kind of like the equivalent of living out in the country for us. And they really had a nice way of life there, some of the people. And but they always knew that they basically live at the base of a volcano, and that they could be killed or their land would be destroyed. But they just got comfortable there at the base of that volcano, because our lives are short and our memories are even shorter. So since 1983, continuous eruption. They know it's weird, but, yeah, let's just see. Let's just build something here and see. Now, ironically, what happened 7 years before the volcano began to continuously erupt was this: fracking. Not fracking for oil or natural gas, but they're fracking for, there's lots of things you can frack for. They drill like 8 miles deep down into the earth. 8 miles. You know how deep that is? And they started that in 1976. And 7 years later, in 1983, that volcano began erupting and has erupted continuously, which they have no evidence that it has ever done. And it has not erupted the way it is erupting now, ever in all that time. And overnight, on the 4th into the 5th, it spewed out more lava in that one night than the other biggest lava flow since it started erupting, if I have that correct. Now, don't quote me on that, but go research it for yourself. But it's pretty much that's what I remember, because I have been interested in this. So fracking. If you don't know what fracking is, please look it up. It is a way of getting to energy, cheap energy. It's very destructive to the land, very disruptive, poisonous even, especially when it's for oil and for natural gas. It's destroyed communities, and they just do it as a big experiment. They just, they always do some fake study and say, oh, it's safe. Oh, it's safe. And then people start getting sick and they say, oh, well, that wasn't safe, but we've learned a lot since then and we're doing it this way. And then they say, well, where's the evidence that what you're doing is safe now? Oh, well, it's safe. We did our studies. Well, you did those other studies and you said that was safe. And the frogs have two heads and everybody's, infertile. And there's all kinds of birth defects and the water is poison and the land is unlivable. And you said that the last time, but no. This time, it's safe this time. So they do that everywhere they go. So with all of that, and then they had like one overnight period here recently there in Hawaii, just recently. Now this thing has been erupting for over a month. 500 earthquakes in a night. In a 24-hour period, 500 earthquakes. Now, I want you to go, if you will, if you care to, or you could just take my word for it, look at some of, like one time I watched this documentary about Pompeii. I watched a couple of them, and there were some other ones. There was one huge volcano in Indonesia. I can't think of the name of it, but it was also an area that was occupied by imperialist European countries and taken over the way of life of the indigenous people, virtually enslaving them through money, because I told you, God told me money was created to make sure they'd always have slaves. Take that to the bank. So when you see in history about what happened in the time preceding these eruptions, there will be unprecedented happenings through this volcano, whatever volcano it is, wherever you are, whether it was Mount St. Helens in Washington in the United States, it's the state of Washington, or if it's the one in Indonesia that was in the 1800s, or if it was Pompeii from the time of, Rome and Greece. You read about these volcanoes and what happened. And that was in Pompeii, was a city, kind of like Vegas. It was kind of like the Vegas of Rome. Wicked, wicked place. I mean, wicked, perverted city of the wealthy. Vacation spot, just a luxury type place. And it was buried in a day in hot volcanic ash, not lava, ash. Because the ash, even if the lava doesn't reach you, and some volcanoes explode without lava, and it's just the pressure that builds up from being released in the earth, it shoots out this hot gas and ash, and the ash burns the people to death, like vaporizes them, like nothing is left of them. And it's so many times, like 1,000, 10,000 times stronger than the blast that destroyed the Japanese cities at the end of World War II. Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So these volcanoes, those bombs are nothing compared to these volcanoes. And when you read about or you watch any documentaries or anything about what preceded those eruptions, it would be strange events that had not happened before, just signs that the volcano was giving off that it's waking up. And it's doing things that it never did before, like this volcano in Hawaii is doing. And the only thing that you hear on the news coming out of Hawaii is, oh, this island is, 4,000 some square miles. And that's only happening within 1 square mile, 1% of the island. That's what they say. 1% of the island. It's more than 1 square mile, but 1% of the island. And that was in the beginning. Now it's way bigger than that. But what they were concerned about, what I was seeing in the little news reports that I was seeing as video clips, was them downplaying all of what, I'm sorry, I'm looking at these chemtrails, all of what was happening at this volcano. The U.S., what do they call it? The U.S. Geological Society or something like that. That USGC or something like that. They're giving out daily reports about what's going on with the volcano. And they're saying, they're just so talking out of both sides of their face, saying, well, yeah, there were 500 earthquakes last night. There have been an average of 200 or 300 earthquakes a day since this eruption began. Oh, well, yeah, this is more lava than we've ever seen. Oh, yeah, the crater of the summit of the volcano has opened up to an area 1,000 times bigger than what it was. Oh, the summit has collapsed from under it. Oh, an ash plume exploded out of the summit 3 miles up into the air. 3 miles straight up into the air. But it was blown out to sea. They'll say stuff like that, like really devastating stuff. And then they'll just say it in this matter-of-fact kind of tone. So it's like they're telling you what's happening, but it's kind of like if I were to say, well, there was a fire in the bushes in my backyard, a raging 17-alarm fire. It took 300 firemen to put it out, but they eventually got it out and everything's fine now. That's the kind of tones that they're speaking to these people in. It's like they are just so downplaying this. And this thing is huge. And at best, they can say, we have never seen this before. This volcano has never done this before. And we don't know what's going to happen. Lesser signs than this have preceded huge, devastating volcanic eruptions. There are no more signs that this thing could give that it's going to blow, and it's going to blow big. And you know what they're concerned about? Tourism. They're saying, well, it's confined to a small area of Hawaii. But you know what happened when Mount St. Helens erupted? There was ash that blew up into the air, miles into the air, and caused millions and millions of dollars in damage in places miles away. Because of that hot ash and the quantities of ash and volcanic debris that will be blown. So, not only that, when that lava reaches the ocean, the steam from it is converted into hydrochloric acid. There are poisonous gases that are given off when that lava reaches the ocean and it's quenched in the ocean and goes up as steam. And it doesn't even go out immediately. It's still burning underwater. That's how hot this stuff is. And so, depending on which way the wind is blowing, will determine if people who have breathing problems, older people, and children can breathe. And you want to tell people, they were criticizing different shipping lines and those cruise boats and people for canceling their tours. And they are deterring the news from reporting how dangerous this really potentially is. And all it needs is the potential to be dangerous. Why would Hawaii is like, 2 or 3,000 miles from California, which is the closest U.S. closest U.S. state to the next closest state to Hawaii is California, from what way I'm looking at the map, and it looks to be at least 2 to 3,000 miles away from there. So who wants to plan this dream vacation, spend a whole lot of money, and have it ruined by, at best, a bunch of ash? Horrible, choking, burning ash. And more people, in the Mount St. Helens eruption, there was no lava. People died from hot ash. And the explosive rocks the size of cars and refrigerators that blow straight out because of the force of all of this pressure coming up from the earth. Now, which brings me to another point. Out of these so-called fissures in the ground, these cracks that developed in the ground, before the lava started shooting out, guess what was coming out of it? Steam and flames, like gases of sulfur. Like they would actually find, because there would be people who were still living in those areas, and they're, of course they got their cell phones out and their cameras out and all that stuff, and they're out taking footage of this because they're used to this volcano erupting, because it's been slowly oozing and erupting from time to time since, like I said, 1983. So they're thinking this is just another one of those times, but it just wouldn't die down. It wouldn't die down. And instead of going away, it's cranking up and cranking up and cranking up. And they're just not taking it seriously. And the bottom line, the reason why they are not telling these people what's going on is because, the same reason why they piled all those people onto the Titanic, knowing that there were problems. Money. They want your tourist dollar. They're worried about their economy. And if there's the slightest chance, and there's more than just the slightest chance that thing is going to blow, who cares about your business? If people are going to come there and lose their lives, or even have, be hospitalized behind breathing problems. Now, there may be people who want to take a chance and come anyway, but don't lie to people. Tell them the truth. Maybe you want to be there on the island, bring a respirator and experience a volcano from the other side of the island, but don't tell people it's safe. And that's what this government does. The love of money is the root of all evil. Every bit of it, every drop of evil. At the root of it is the love of money. So sulfur is coming up out of the vents. Before the lava came up, there was gases that were coming up, and then they would go and film it. Just these regular, everyday Joe Blows out filming this stuff, and there would be yellow powder all along where the cracks were. And you know what that was? Sulfur. You know what the other word for sulfur is? Brimstone. Look it up. Look up brimstone, and it'll tell you it's sulfur. You know where else there's brimstone? In hell. You know where volcanoes come from? You know where lava comes from? You know why it's so hot? Because it's at the center of the earth. And that's where it's shooting up from, and that's where the pressure's all coming from. And you know what else? Hell is in the center of the earth. What you're seeing flowing out there is the rivers, the lake of fire. Hell. Hell is real. God is real. And this thing is coming to an end. So I guess there was another earthquake, huge earthquakes and volcano in Guatemala. And also, I dreamed in 2016, I think it was 2016, maybe 2015, about a volcano in Florida. And I thought that was ridiculous. I'm like, okay, well, there's no mountains and stuff like that in Florida. But you could have a volcano anywhere. All it needs is a crack from the center of the earth. All you need is an earthquake to make a crack for that pressure to shoot out of. That's all a volcano is. And the Bible told us there would be earthquakes in diverse places. That was going to be one of the signs of the last days. Where there's earthquakes, you're going to have volcanoes. Where you have volcanoes, where you have earthquakes, the volcanoes erupt. Because it's all related to the instability of the crust of the earth. And guess who's doing it? Man is doing it. When we read about all those disasters that the Lord predicted that would mark and tell us that it was time for the end, well, I always assumed that the Lord was going to be doing those things. But God's not doing those things. It's the people that he said he was going to punish. He said he's coming back to punish those that destroy the earth. Those that are destroying the earth. They're destroying the earth. They're causing all this instability. They're the ones that are making all these things happen. God said to me back in 2016, geoengineering. I did not know what that was. I mean, you can break the word down and kind of guess, but I looked it up. And what it is manipulation of weather and doing other things in the earth to bring about what they want. Like the whole process of fracking is to force different fossil fuels to the surface so that they can sell them. The love of money, without regard to what it does to the environment and the people who are living there. Do a little research on fracking. You're going to get really angry. And at this point, it's not about our rights. It's not about going on any protests. It's just about watching and looking at the things that are done on this earth. To the point where when God comes here and you watch some of that footage from that volcano, and you're going to see how the whole earth is going to be ablaze. That's going to cover the whole earth. God's going to destroy, he said, with a fervent heat. That lava melts everything in its path. That is solid rock that is moving as quickly as if it were water. The lake of fire. It's going to be to the point where we are so disgusted by the things that we see happening in this earth and all over $1. When food, money doesn't grow on trees, but food does. And I'll take an apple over $1 any day. You can't eat $1. You give me some land and an apple tree and some seeds and leave me alone, and I could go a lot farther than with your money. You can keep it. This earth is on trial before our eyes, so that when our God comes back here and burns everything to the ground, nobody's sitting around, oh, the poor sinners, oh, the poor, oh, Jesus, that was wrong, you shouldn't have did that. And how Abraham said, oh, Lord, will you destroy the righteous with the wicked? When God was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, he did it so gently, the way he told Abraham, but he let Abraham know if there is no righteous there, only Lot. Only Lot. There is not 50 people there. There's not 45. There's not 20. There's not 10. Only Lot. Only Lot. And unless you feel sorry for the little deer and all the squirrels and all that stuff. What will be the price to bring all this foolishness to an end? He's looking for a people that's going to clap and say, the kingdoms of this world have become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his Christ, and he shall reign forever and ever. And how will that happen unless he first destroy this place? The cry of it has come up before me, and I will destroy that place. Just like Sodom and Gomorrah, just like the world that Noah was saved from by the ship, him and 8 people. And the same day that Lot left out of Sodom, it was destroyed by raining down with fire and brimstone, sulfur. The same day Noah entered into the ark, it was destroyed. The earth was destroyed with a flood. And the same day the Lord Jesus Christ comes back and gathers us unto him, the earth will be destroyed. There's no such thing as left behind. That's all I wanted to say. God bless.